Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for tuning into this week's recap of the Lansing Watchdog, your trusted source for small business news. As always, I'm Francesca Rocco Ellis.
And I'm Jacob Manning.
And Jacob, talk about one busy week here at the Capitol. What do you have to get us started?
Yes, absolutely a busy week. And the big stunner of last week was a major shakeup in Michigan's 2026 gubernatorial race. Independent candidate and former mayor Mike Duggan, who we've talked so much about on this program, surprisingly ended his campaign for governor last week, just 56 days before the filing deadline. Duggan's bid was seen as one of the most serious independent runs in recent state history, backed by strong support from the business community and boosted by roughly $14 million in third-party advertising. He initially polled well, especially in Metro Detroit, and looked like a real alternative for voters fed up with partisan politics, but momentum didn't last. Duggan blamed his struggles to break through on the national conversation shifting towards issues like the war in Iran and rising gas prices. Unlike his Democratic and Republican rivals, he largely stayed out of those debates, a strategy that may have cost him viability as voters grew more polarized. Over the weekend, Duggan said he came to a difficult conclusion during a conversation with his son and campaign manager that there simply wasn't a viable path to victory. He says, "We were 11 points down and slipping. We had to deal with reality." A recent MERS poll showed Duggan at just 13%, far behind Democrat Jocelyn Benson at 42% and Republican John James at 32%. Funding also became a problem. While there was national interest in an independent candidacy, Duggan said few donors were willing to invest, and he didn't want to keep asking his Michigan supporters to double down as his chances declined. In the end, Duggan acknowledged tough truth. He no longer believed enough voters would split their tickets to support him, and reaction has been swift. Democrats praised his effort to bring people together, while Republicans dismissed his campaign as never being truly independent. Analysts say his departure could significantly reshape the race and possibly weaken Republicans' hope down the ballot. Meanwhile, critics of Michigan's straight party ticket voting system say Duggan's loss highlights just how difficult it is for an independent candidate to compete. Duggan leaves behind a long political resume, including 3 terms as Detroit's mayor, and speculation is already building about what's next. Some are even wondering whether he could resurface in a leadership role within higher education. For now, though, his exit marks a turning point in Michigan's governor race and a reminder of just how hard it is to run outside of the state's two-party system. Back to you, Francesca. What can you tell us about property tax reform moving in the House?
Yeah, Jacob. So after nearly 8 hours of debate, everything came down to one vote in the Michigan House. Then a surprise. Democratic Representative Karen Whitsett, absent from the House floor since August, appeared, gave a thumbs up, and handed Republicans the deciding vote. The chamber erupted, cheers, boos, and even hugs as the House passed a sweeping property tax reform package 57 to 44. Whitsett joined Republicans with one Republican Representative Jamie Green breaking ranks to vote no. The plan, called Help Up, would roll back several taxes, including the state education tax and real estate tax, transfer tax, and phase out remaining personal property taxes. Republicans say it could save the average Michigan household around $1,200 a year. Whitsett said she returned because reducing costs was critical for her Detroit constituents, calling the decision both practical and personal. But critics warn the cuts could come at a steep cost. State analysts estimate that the plan could reduce school funding by billions over the next few years, and it hinges on a separate proposal, still not passed, to replace the lost revenue through the sales tax on select services. The service tax bill is still in committee and does not include any specifics yet, so it is still hard to predict the scope of the proposal. That uncertainty is raising concerns on both sides of the aisle. Green, the lone Republican no vote, called the plan a risky tax shift, while Democrats argued it could lead to cuts in essential services like schools, roads, and public safety. Supporters, including House Speaker Matt Hall, said those details will be worked out in negotiations with Governor Whitmer and the Senate Democrats, and that any final deal will protect schools and local governments. For now, the dramatic vote marks a major step forward in the plan and the moment that could reshape Michigan's tax system, even as big questions remain. Now, handing it back to you, Jacob. What were some legislative wins that we saw this week?
Yes, so we definitely had some significant legislative wins last week that we wanted to highlight just to close out today's program. First, 2 bills were introduced to create what's being called the Office of Small Business Growth inside the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. This office would exist to promote entrepreneurship in Michigan and to provide grants and supports to small businesses and local organizations providing services to small businesses. The office would also act as a one-stop shop for small businesses navigating state government and would be the go-to place for small business owners trying to set up their new business, utilize government resources to scale, and ensure compliance with laws and regulations. Passage of these bills would signal a shift in how the state handles economic development, moving back towards principles of economic gardening. The introduced bills are Senate Bills 1009 and 1010, and were introduced by Senator Sarah Anthony in the Senate. And we expect that there will also be bills in the House as well, and that they will be bipartisan, bicameral bills. We also had a bill introduced last week that affects how small business owners can offer insurance benefits to their employees. This bill is House Bill 1011, introduced by Senator Kevin Hertel. The bill would allow small businesses, including qualified sole proprietors, to band together to form their own risk pools or association health plans. Under current law, small businesses can only enter these arrangements with other businesses in the same industry as them. This bill would expand requirements to allow businesses within the state to do so through a bona fide association, with industry standard consumer protections included. We continue to hear that rising health insurance premiums have been a key inhibitor for growth for small businesses. SBAM has experience with association health plans too. We launched our own when they were briefly allowed under federal law, and members who engaged experienced real cost savings. We're hopeful that the Senate Health Policy Committee takes this bill up soon, and we will be advocating for its passage, hoping to see similar benefits on the state level. Now, kicking it back to you, Francesca, can you talk about a child care bill that we support passing the Senate last week?
Yeah, Jacob. So we saw Senate Bill 310 pass the Senate last week. And basically what this does is it codifies Michigan's Tri-Share Child Care program into law. And it also establishes the Tri-Share Child Care Fund within the Department of Lifelong Education Advancement and Potential, or MyLeap. And basically, this is a big win for us because previously Tri-Share was in the budget each year. However, it was not guaranteed to receive funding. Now that it's codified into law, that means that it is an item that will be receiving funding each year for the foreseeable future. So really a big win for us and very exciting as things move forward on it.
All right. Now, moving forward, can you close us out for the week, Francesca?
Absolutely. Just wanted to remind everyone to join us for SBAM's annual meeting on June 18th at the Eagle Eye Golf Club in Bath. You can find out more information about SBAM events by scanning the QR code below or visiting sbam.org/events. And with that, Jacob and I wish you a great rest of your week, and we'll catch you next week with more updates.